family's just texting me about the 500.
Oh, yeah.
And they're naming all their drivers that they're after. I'm like, I want to see car go fast.
Are they betting on the race? Or are they just, like,
we used to do, like, a raffle every year where you draw drivers.
Mm-hmm.
And then you win a prize if you got in, like, the top 3 to 5.
Oh,
but a lot of our side of the family who is really into the race have moved away.
Mm-hmm.
In the last, like, 5 years, they had kids.
Yeah.
Kids left state, and then they're like, well, we should go move by our kids. So now everyone's just, like, typing the names of drivers in, and I just, like, hope everyone has a fun time and cars go fast. I'm so uninvested. I'm gonna, like, go see cars scream fast, but as long as I see that for an hour, I'm like, we can go now.
Yeah.
I've experienced it.
Yeah.
I get it. Now we beat traffic.
I know the Indy 500 is technically, like, one of the biggest sporting events, like, on the planet.
It is. It's the biggest in North America. It's, I think, the biggest, like, sports arena or sports field or whatever the nomenclature would be.
Yeah.
You can fit the Vatican in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And saying Indy 500 anywhere pretty much on the planet, they go, oh, I know where Indiana is. And I'm like, cool. I've never been invested in this fucking event ever.
It's really fun. It's like one of those things that your brain does not comprehend the speed or intensity of what's happening through TV at all.
Yeah.
And like I only go every couple of years. My family's really into it, so they go every year. But like I go whenever there's like an extra ticket because someone can't go. But like when you're there in person, it's so different. Like on TV, it like seems really boring. I would never watch, like, IndyCar and stuff on TV, but just being there, it's like, okay, I get it now.
They're going so fast. It's so loud.
It's so fucking loud. Like, you could be on literally the opposite side of the city. You can still kind of hear it. Yeah, I guess the only thing about Indy 500 I have is that it almost killed my grandparents.
Hell yeah.
Because there was a...
I mean...
Was a tire or something?
Not hell
no,
yeah.
The stands, like, collapsed.
Oh, they were there for that?
Yeah.
Shit.
Like, it fucked up my grandma, and they were able to save her leg, but a portion of it, the bone was so shattered with, like, 80s technology, they couldn't, like, put it back together, so they just lopped off a portion of, like, I think it was, like, her shin bones. So one of her legs was just, like, slightly shorter than the other, so she had this, like, orthopedic pair of shoes where one shoe was just, like, a wee bit thicker than the other, just so that she'd be, like, balanced.
Right.
Yeah, so that... yeah, that's really, I'm just like, yeah, that made, finding out about that made my grandfather's cookouts for Memorial Day weekend for the Indy 500 race really fucking weird. Because I'm like, are you commemorating that you beat the race by living? Like, what the fuck?
Our friend John Scenario B in the server was in the stands where the tire flew over last year, I think it was.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
He still got one of the bolts. It fell off and hit him. He was able to keep it.
I mean, I'm glad he did.
Yeah.
It's weird. I know a lot of people involved in that. The car it hit was my coworker's aunt's.
Huh. Weird.
So
yeah.
they bought her a new car.
Well, right.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Like, they didn't even do, like, equal value. They're just like, we're just going to buy you a new car. There you go.
The only time I've been to the Speedway racetrack was during COVID when they had it set up for the drive-through inoculation center.
Oh, yeah, they did
Which
that.
was actually kind of cool, because the pits where they have, like, the race crews, they had it opened up so you could just queue up your car. You'd pull up, the nurses would just, like, have you roll down your window. They stab you. They'd give you a shirt with, like, the racetrack flags on it, being like, I got my shots at the Indy Speedway with, like, little racing checkered flags, and then you fuck off.
Nice.
Oh, and you also got a box of Girl Scout cookies.
Shit.
Nice.
It was honestly kind of a sweet deal.
Damn, why did I just go to CVS? I should have done that.
Yeah, I'm technically what at the time was considered immunocompromised and at risk, so I got to go early with all the old people.
Yeah.
At the hospital.
Yeah, no, I went during the cycle where they're trying to get the first round of adults to go that weren't like emergency peoples. And they're just like, well, I guess we got to make it fun somehow. And I was just like, I mean, I was planning on doing this anyways, but like...
You guys know the stick. You're the patrons. We can just get going, I guess.
Look, they're time wizards that try to go back and kill my grandparents, and it didn't work.
I'll get them someday.
Depending on when Hunter edits that, you're going to have no context for what the fuck I'm talking about.
That's true. But I will get them someday.
Mm.
But yeah, it's the patron bonus episode, and We're talking about The Quiet Year.
We're blank bodies.
Yeah.
We are at the blank.
Well, this is a Patreon
the
episode,
bodies.
so we don't
Yeah.
have to do all that.
I'm just yelling it.
Yeah, I do like yelling. But yeah, we're talking about The Quiet Year and how to use it for Vampire. So
It's good.
No.
it's a fun game.
I've
recently
enjoyed it.
got to play it. It's been on my list for a long time, so thank you, Brian,
Yes.
who ran that for a bunch of people.
Yes.
Thank you, friend.
No real content warning. This one's pretty chill. Unless, as always, the dreaded math. But there's not even a lot of math. The mechanics are very simple. If you can count to 6, you can do all the calculations that this game will require of you.
Oh, hell yeah.
And the source is The Quiet Year. It's a 16-page PDF, including like 2 or 3 pages of like cheat sheets at the back. So very simple.
It is good.
Mm-hmm.
I recommend you pick it up if you like what you hear. I think it's like $5. And it's really fun. It's a really great... so let's talk about what it is. It's a map-making game. It's a storytelling game that uses map-making as its main storytelling form. At the beginning, civilization as it was has collapsed in some way. The players stand in for whatever community is left, and they are rebuilding it from the scraps left behind. The game does have a pre-baked story in, but very quickly people have kind of changed it, and it's very mutable to be any kind of setting you want it to be. Mm-hmm. The art even switches between like fantasy and apocalypse and stuff, so even the story that's baked in is very vague.
It could very easily just be like, there was just a Sabbat purge, and there is now a like year of what faction's gonna take the city.
Yeah, or there was a new prince, or
Right.
Anything.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you do not play individual characters in this. If you're going to continue on and with another game like we're talking about today, where you play this, that builds your city or your setting, and then you run that as your game starting there. You may have your player characters there, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. But you are playing everybody in the city, and you're not assigned. It's kind of like Microscope, where like if you introduce something, you have that character while you're talking about it. But the next turn doesn't mean that like John couldn't take the character I made and say, well, he feels this way.
Okay.
So, but the whole point of the game is making decisions. And as decisions are made, they are added to the map that you lay out. You continue to form and add to the map through the seasons until winter ends. The Quiet Year does, like I mentioned, have a baked-in story about the end of a war with the Jackals and the coming of the Frost Shepherds in 1 year's time. When we'll get to the vampire section at the end, we're going to kind of throw that out. But there is a pretty basic storyline for you to follow if you just want to hop in, try Quiet Year. And that would be a good way to get comfortable with the game, just so everyone kind of knows what they're doing. You run that once just to get the rules down, and then you move forward with what you're doing. So let's talk about some of the other elements of the game. There's the community. The community is made up of about 60 to 80 people, and they should take up no more than about a third of the map. So with Vampire, that makes it really easy. You pick a regular city, 60 to 80 vampires. About
Ding,
right.
ding.
If you're really picky about that, we did a whole episode about the actual math behind how many vampires should be in any given city.
Yeah, we've done a series on city building. I still enjoy it. Apparently other people in the community have been like, hell yeah, Blake Buddies for pointing out. Apparently we do good research, and other people are like, oh, thanks.
Neat.
Yay!
And this would be a good follow-up, just like Microscope was to those. So that's the basics. You have the community, and you're drawing a map as a group. So let's talk about the mechanics a little bit. As this is a map-making game, you do need some supplies. You can do all this through Foundry. That's how I've played it. But we're gonna discuss this as if you're playing in person. So you will need paper, pens, index cards, 6-sided die, some tokens. It recommends 20, and a deck of cards.
Like a 52 deck of cards?
Yeah, so they actually do sell a specific Quiet Year deck, but any deck will work. And the paper is the map, so I would recommend a larger piece of paper if you can get your hands on some. You could even use like a big hunk of cardboard and like Sharpies to draw on it.
You can get poster board from the dollar store.
Yeah.
If you're super broke.
Use a pizza box, just to dab up the grease. That's a lake
or
now.
leave the grease. Yeah.
The grease could just be part of the map now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It could be called the grease. You can figure out what that means
Hi
at
guys,
your table.
we're drawing up the land of Greece.
Yes.
I'm just imagining a bunch of blue and white striped shirts.
Love it.
Anyways.
Yeah, so As the game is played, events will happen that change the map. You can draw on it whenever appropriate, though words are not allowed. You can do symbols, you can do little pictures, but you can't just write, like, the lake.
Or library.
Yeah. You're expected to draw symbols or iconography to fill out the map. One of the first big things that the game introduces is resources. These are picked at the beginning of the game, and each player names one. So if there's 3 of us, we would each name one resource. They can be normal resources like wood and fresh water, or they can be more ethereal like trust and warmth.
Tungsten.
Yep, you could get that specific
Jesus
if you wanted to.
Christ.
I wouldn't specifically say that for a vampire game. That seems a little...
I mean...
You never know.
It could come up.
You could, if you... Look, there's our brethren in other parts of the world where they have, like, mining communities. So that might be a thing.
It's true.
If that's the kind of game you want to run, but I don't know.
Yeah, I think the obvious ones for vampire would be like things like blood and havens.
We got a lot of blood in this city.
Well, I would say you would have like an easy access
Like,
to it.
yeah, a
like
good
it's easy to get.
population.
Yeah,
Yeah,
good
yeah.
population.
I just like
So it'd
the
be like
idea
herd.
of somebody like
Yeah.
patting the city on the top and be like, "You can fit so much blood in this thing."
But then you could also do things like security. Like it's pretty easy to like cover your ass. But so everyone does pick one. After they've been all named, there's a short discussion to determine which of these is chosen as an abundance. All the others become scarcities.
Oh.
Cool.
So you pick one. So say we say blood, security, and havens. We'd have a 1 to 2 minute discussion, and whatever one we decide is the most interesting to be the abundance is the abundance. You draw that all over the map, and then the others are scarcities, and you have to try and draw whatever that scarcity is on the map using symbology.
God, could you just imagine a city with just so many, like, tons of racks? Racks all over the place, but the security is garbage, so just like, good luck feeding and not breaking the masquerade. But it's everywhere.
Yes.
It's like, that's insane.
Love it. And no havens. Nobody has a haven. There's nowhere
I mean,
to
in this
stay.
economy,
Right, exactly.
it's like,
Exactly.
can you afford to maintain a haven with the rent these days?
Good luck.
This sounds like we're just describing Manhattan. I'm going to be completely honest.
True. True. So the next thing that you're playing with is cards. A deck of 52 cards is used. Each represents a week. The suits are divided into 4 piles, 1 for each suit, and each represent a different season.
Okay.
Word.
On each player's turn, you're going to draw a card. The card typically presents a choice that will affect the community. It's a this or this kind of choice. There's a couple that are just like, this happens. Sorry.
Yeah.
But most of them, you get some kind of choice. Even if they're both bad or both good, you get to choose which happens.
Okay.
So the player who drew the card gets to make the decision. It is not a group choice. It's kind of like on Microscope, where when it's your turn, you decide what happens.
Okay.
Everyone else can react to it on their turn with new decisions, but it's your turn. You draw the card. You decide.
Well, there is a mechanic too. We'll talk about later, I'm sure, where you can still voice your opinion without voicing your opinion, but it's after the person has made their choice.
Yeah,
and you don't say anything. It's all.
Yeah, I
We'll
believe
get to it.
I believe I put this later, but turns are supposed to be pretty quick, 1 to 2 minutes. And we haven't gone through everything in turn, but it's supposed to be quick. It's not supposed to be like long, drawn-out discussions. And we'll get into how that works in a little bit. But draw your cards, you do what they say, and then once the King of Spades is drawn, Spades is the winter season, the game ends. If you're using the original Microscope setup, that's when the Frost Shepherds arrive.
Okay.
And so the second that card is drawn, the game is over. No more decisions can be made. You can discuss what you think happens after, but the game is over.
Okay, so you have all the suits separated into piles, and you'll run through the hearts, diamonds, all that. But then spades is winter, so then you're kind of on the timer of whenever the king shows up.
Yeah, so
Okay.
you're guaranteed to go through all 3 seasons of the first 3, and then winter can be as long or short as the deck draws
Could
out to
literally
be.
be the first one,
And you're just like,
and
well,
winter's done.
there we go.
Yeah. Could also be the very last one. Ours actually was like, what was it, like 3 or 4 from the last?
There was only one other card, I believe.
Yeah.
Damn.
There were 2 cards
You
left.
almost went through the whole deck.
Yeah.
Wild.
Which our friend who ran it said they've never seen it get that far.
Yeah.
So.
Damn.
Statistically, yeah, makes sense, but
Yeah.
It's fun.
Hell yeah.
So let's talk about turns a little bit.
Yeah.
So during a player's turn, you get to make a choice. You can discover something new, hold a discussion, or start a project. And you do that after the card's drawn and that's settled.
Yeah.
Discovering something is simple. You pick a small spot on the map. The game recommends a square inch or less, but depends on the size of your map. Just be reasonable. You draw it and state what it is. It could be a person, place, thing, animal, mineral, vegetable, whatever. You say, this thing's on the map now, and that's the end of your turn. You can hold a discussion. Likewise simple. The player whose turn it is makes a statement or asks a question. Each other player can respond as a voice from the community and must do so in 1 to 2 sentences. Any other thoughts must be held until the next discussion. So it's very like... I think this should happen. You can voice a different part of the community every time. You're not assigned anything. You hear that, and who do you think would respond? If you're playing a game that you're planning on following up with, like a full D&D campaign or a vampire game, like we're doing, you could have your player character in the community, and you could decide to voice their opinion, but you don't have to. Unless you decide ahead of time. As written, no, you could voice someone else's character's opinion if you really wanted to.
Right.
That might get a little awkward, but
I think that might be kind of a neat way, especially if you're the storyteller, to let the players kind of yes and in some NPCs at random.
yeah.
Where they're just like, oh yeah, this is so and so from Malkavian says this.
That's one of the many uses for the index cards. You can write down characters' names and decisions. Well, yeah, but you do keep track of NPCs as they're introduced, so that. And then there is one final thing you can choose to do, and that's start a project.
Can you hold on? Sorry. Can you just voice like a group of people, or is it just you have to be talking as one individual?
It doesn't specifically say, so I think as long as you say it within 1 or 2 sentences, I think it could be either. I would likely have one person be the voice of a group, like we'll keep it vampire. So like say like a baron, you're the voice of the baron, and be like, well, the anarchs are not down with this idea. Or you could be like, this coterie thinks that this is a bad idea.
Right.
So
okay.
I think you could do either. I don't really see why.
Or the local 4-H thinks this is great, and you're like, why the fuck is the 4-H is in the game now?
Right.
You can start adding.
That's kind of what I was thinking is to introduce like groups or things like that.
Oh yeah, you can absolutely build your city up as you go through these, just with small like one-off characters end up being important.
For the discussion thing, I almost kind of want to have people play it as like comments on like a Yelp review.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
I feel like that could be funny.
I was thinking for Vampire even, every time you have a discussion, it's like, all right, an Elysium is being held. Or these are the people here at Elysium that night, and here's what they feel about what's happening in the city.
Yeah.
You don't have to do it that way, but I think it could be fun.
Yeah. You're just going to add that little bit to it.
Yeah. Gives you a little more role-playing, and you're building the city out and the characters out a little more before you get there. So,
hell yeah.
But yeah, so next we have projects. And projects are a little bit more complex. You start a project to address something in the community. You choose the setup and how the community works to resolve it. There's no discussion at this point. So, say someone's like, well, I've noticed that there's a lot of police activity in this area around some people's havens. I'm worried they're going to catch on to the Nosferatu who are living in that area. So, to dissuade them from that, we're going to fake a bunch of crime in a neighboring area to kind of distract them and move them over, their attention away. So, once you've come up with your project like that, then the group determines the length of time needed to resolve that action. It's 1 to 6 weeks or 1 to 6 turns. Each turn's a week. So, any project longer than that has to be done in stages.
Okay.
So, if you're doing something like, we want to build a grand event center in the center of town, that could take months. So it could be like, well, I bet we could get a land permit in like a month and a half, 6 weeks. So it'd be like, all right, we're working to get a land permit or the permits bought or whatever, however long you think. Say money is like your abundance for the city. It's like, we can buy this. We just got to get through all the red tape.
Yeah.
Right.
So there's a lot of ways to do it. This is where you would just discuss how long you think that would happen. Then a dice is placed on the map to represent the project, and you place the number of weeks you think it will be face up. So if you guys determine it'll be a 4-week project, place a dice, 4 up, there you go. At the beginning of each subsequent turn, the dice is lowered one number. Once it is complete, the player who started the project may quickly describe how the project went and alter the map to represent said project.
Yeah.
The game was a little vague about the rules there, but that's how I would run it. You could also have the player whose turn it ends on describe, but...
Right. Also, you don't have to say that it goes well. I like the idea of just letting it fail, you know? It didn't come, you know, it completed, but awfully. Like, we wanted to do this thing. We did the thing, but also, like, we accidentally burnt down a bar while doing it, and now we have a bit of a tail.
You got protesters at
Right.
the site because community garden's gonna have to be demolished.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It could set up your next project.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We have to get rid of these squatters now because there's a building that they're just breaking into.
Exactly.
Yeah, so a full turn order would be you play a card, you adjust the dice, and then you take an action. So you discover, discuss, or project would be the action.
Okay.
So, and that's all supposed to happen within 1 to 2 minutes.
Okay.
It's supposed to be pretty quick. You got 52 turns to get through.
Yeah.
So you can extend if you want, but I think kind of like Microscope, you can, to take away decision paralysis and to keep people from trying to please the other players, if you cut down on discussion and just say, this is what you do, this is what happens, move on.
Right.
Keep it quick. You don't have people linger on thoughts. It'll happen more naturally.
Yeah.
I'm going to pause real quick.
Okay.
All right. And so the last mechanic is contempt. These are what the tokens are for. Contempt is a way to voice disapproval from other parts of the community. And what's interesting is you don't discuss it at all. So say I start a project that's, we're going to clean up some of the downtown area and make it a little more safe for us more refined vampires. Someone else might say, well, I don't think the anarchs are going to like that. So instead of saying that, they would simply place a contempt token in front of them, and then you move on.
Yep.
That's all. It doesn't affect how fast the project's, but you're just letting them know that I think someone wouldn't like this. Then you move on.
Right.
That's all there is to it.
It's just a downvote on Yelp.
Yeah, pretty
Yeah.
much.
It's getting a 1 star.
Yep.
You got a 1 star on Yelp. No. It's fine.
Yeah. So I actually really like this mechanic because I feel like in the game it also kind of builds just a little bit of social tension. Because, I mean, like, you're playing with your friends, so it doesn't, like, it's whatever. But there is always that, like, I've made a decision. And then someone is, like, pulls a little contempt token toward them, and you're like, oh, no. I wonder why they're upset, you know? Because you don't discuss it either. You just take it.
Yeah, and depending on how many people, like, take the token, storyteller could be like, oh, note.
Mm-hmm.
And if something happens that you think would mend or overrun the contempt from earlier, you can put it back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so, okay, so let's say you put in your project for cleaning up the downtown area.
And you think the anarchs wouldn't like it.
Yeah, so I took a contempt token to have in front of me just to be like, grumpy.
Yeah.
If somebody later on was like, yeah, the downtown area is being, like, quote-unquote cleaned up and they're putting, you know, the anti-homelessness, like, hostile architecture and da-da-da, but somebody was like, but we've put in, like, a shelter.
Yeah, we like put a lot of money in to clean up the shelter we had.
Yeah, or just something like that. And it's like, okay, less mad.
Right.
Put it down. Or put it back in the pile.
Yeah. And you could even do that yourself if you wanted to on your turn and then remove the...
So
Right.
what do you do at the end if you still have contempt tokens?
Nothing. They're literally just kind of a social way to let each other know what's going on, and it keeps you from slowing the game down by discussing things. It's just like I like that it's so vague, but they don't actually directly affect anything.
Okay.
And if you're curious as to why someone took them, on your turn, you can
Start a
discussion, ask a question, be like, how does the community feel about this? The person who took the contempt will likely say why, but they don't have to.
Yeah. You could just straight up ask, like, you know, I believe, right? You could just ask, like, why did you take a contempt?
Or you would have, I would say it.
Or what part of the community is upset?
Yeah. Or we've noticed some pushback on this idea. Why is that?
Right.
And then you would voice people in the community saying why they don't like it or why they think people don't like it.
Right.
I would try and keep the discussions in world, so you don't want them to get meta.
Right.
Like,
right.
so
Makes
your
sense.
discussion wouldn't be like, why did you choose to start a project on your last turn? It would be like, well, why did the sheriff decide that now was the time to crack down on Thin Bloods? So keep it in world, but
keep it. Oh gosh, ask the question either as a harpy or some sort of mortal news reporter. Like, reports say that there's been rumblings in the community about the construction downtown.
Right.
Sorry.
I love it.
Excuses are talking radio voice.
Yeah.
It's a good time.
And we'll talk about that more in my ideas for Vampire at the end, but you don't have to keep it to just vampires either. So finally, we have the game over.
Now, real quick, I feel like I remember, can you also choose to use a contempt to just do something kind of selfish on behalf of a comparative community?
No, I believe that was home
that
rule.
was something we kind of added.
Okay.
Because I've got the PDF, so we'll just double check. But I don't believe so. No.
That was just a homebrew?
Yeah.
Okay.
The other thing that I forgot to put in the script, but is mentioned, is that you can change your abundances and scarcities through projects.
Oh.
Yes.
So that is important to note.
So we have a scarcity of tungsten, but I can start a project.
To like buy a mine and start mining tungsten.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
the way we started at the beginning, so it's like we decided that there's a plethora of blood, and we're like, but we need security, so
right.
Projects.
And the card effects will also change those. So you could draw a card that says you lose an abundance, or pick a scarcity,
or a project fails.
Yeah,
just done.
The cards can affect a lot of different things. So
can the cards allow you to have more than one abundance as the game goes?
Yeah, you can, and the projects can as well too.
Okay, sick.
Yeah, you can turn all of your scarcities into abundances,
or create brand new ones.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought you were just stuck with the one abundance, and I was just like, oh no.
No.
Okay.
You start as one, and typically I've seen people tend to hold on to that unless the cards do something about it. It kind of forms the theme of your community, but
okay,
that could change. Always interesting story. And this goes until you hit the game over. Once the King of Spades is drawn, the game is over. The Quiet Year ends. By its own rules, the game ends immediately. Players may discuss what the Frost Shepherds were and how they affected the community, but the game is over, and you never actually figure out what that was.
Oh.
Yeah.
If you're using this to start another game, though, this is where you pick things up, with a full community built out and ready to be ran as your starting setting.
Ours just ended with a large explosion and a helicopter taking somebody off.
Yeah, robots kidnapping people.
Yeah.
Dang. Wild.
Right. So this is So this is a pretty simple game.
Yeah.
I actually was expecting it to be way more complicated than it really turns out. So for making Vampire, it's pretty straightforward. One of the things that the game does sell is they have, I believe, a cartographer who designed some pre-started maps that you can buy. So you lay the map down, it's got like the geography for the area you're playing in, and then you build off that to play the game.
Nice.
Yeah.
For Vampire, though, you could start out with a printed city map. So, like, say you buy a map of, like, Indianapolis or Seattle, make sure it's table appropriate size, and you don't, if you can find one, the less, like, text and markings, the better. But you could even print off, like, a Google Maps screenshot.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm spacing the name of the website I recommended on the city building, where it lets you pick map layouts and colors and text, no text or whatever, but all the maps themselves are based off of Google Maps, and you can just print them for free. I think I'm forgetting what it's called. Anyways,
go back and listen to that episode.
Yeah, I've done the thing, but I've used that for just make them up cities if you want, because you can just type in a random coordinate, or you can just grab the mouse and just spin the planet and stop it and be like, all right, this is the chunk of roads, this is a city. Or if you just don't put labels on things and your friends are full of ADHD, they won't realize that you're just like, I have Munich on the table, no one needs to know.
Yeah, it's fine.
It's fine.
You know, this probably wouldn't work for Vampire, but for those of you who are really big into minis, this would be a really great way to just lay out your table and make a little map out of your minis and stuff.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if you have like the big
cool
D&D gridded map, just thwack that on the table and be like, all right, we're gonna take these dry erase markers and
boop, 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 boop.
sketch out some stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could totally do that.
Or if you're a terrain builder, and you just want to make a 3D like fucking city, that'd be fucking cool.
Yeah.
I have enough projects right now, John.
I'm not saying you should. You don't have time for that shit.
But I want to.
Not yet. I was going to throw a patron plug there, but they're already here, so...
I mean...
Tell your friends.
I was going to say harass your friends, but yes, tell them politely.
Politely ask your friends, I suppose.
Your enemies, too. Why not?
Mm-hmm.
Once I'm through
Tell your enemies that you would absolutely hate it if they gave us money.
Once I'm done doing the pre-orders of the shirts that we're launching, I'll consider other projects.
Yeah.
Anywho,
Yes.
so you've got your map whacked on the table for Vampire. Boom.
Yeah. You would still be able to add locations, alter the map through discoveries, projects, and cards.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I would suggest for Vampire that I was kind of just thinking now, but I think would be a good idea, especially if you're working with a city map and shit. I know the game says no text on the map.
Mm-hmm.
I would allow text on the map for things like if you've got a big city map and you're trying to put like a little building that's like the Tremere Chantry or something, say.
I mean, for that, you could just draw the Tremere symbol.
Yeah.
Instead,
if you're somebody who's like, I'm bad at drawing and I don't like this, what you can do is there's a fuckload of free PNGs of just like map icons. I have a giant folder of those from when I ran V5 over the interwebs during lockdowns.
Yeah, you could print off a couple pages of those, cut them out, and just drop those on the map, glue them down, or whatever.
Just, things where it's like a bunch of random houses, hospitals, churches, various just libraries, just things that you're like, these are things that would make sense. And then you have little scrap papers where if you need to just randomly make up something, you can just whack it on.
That would be super handy. I do still think that like a little text is okay. I feel like every time we've played it, a little text creeps in anyway.
It's like no text, and it's like I need them to know this is Gravies though.
It's also I think kind of borderline in accessibility, because I know some people are like, I can't draw, I can't do this. It's like just let them write whatever it is down next to a squiggle.
It's like, it's like don't write. I would say don't write a bunch of shit, but if it's just like it's like
3-word max.
Yeah, it's like the Marat Music Center. Like, okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Or if it's something like Gravies, you could just draw the little Gravies logo, which is just Gravies.
Yeah.
See, and now we're already getting into the argument: where does iconography end and text begin?
This is the forever conundrum of being a fontologist.
There are too many graphic designers on this podcast.
There's 2, which is awful.
Yes, that's too many.
That's not me.
Yeah, you're the regular artist. I'm like, oh no, I'm both. I'm terrible. Set me on fire.
I haven't dipped my toes in the forbidden art of graphic design.
Don't. It's a hell.
And it doesn't pay most of the time.
No.
Yeah.
But so for the next step, I suggest you replace the jackals with something that would shake a vampire city to its core. If you want to still call them the jackals, that's fine. But it could be a Sabbat attack, a vicious battle for the title of prince.
A bunch of were-jackals.
Yeah. 2 warring barons. The Second Inquisition, werewolves reclaiming their land. Anything you want as long as it leaves the vampires on their back foot and having to rebuild.
A mage.
And shit. Yeah.
Just one mage!
You could also do this for werewolf. Just easy. You're playing werewolf. What fucked up what werewolf community was
one
left.
Mage.
You could just honestly just like, well, you're werewolves. That's bad enough. Rebuild your community. At least from the state of things now.
Oops.
Honestly, that's kind of a bummer, but also like, probably how I would start. It's like, you're just werewolves. Time to rebuild. With Hunter.
Oh, the Frost Shepherds just become, all right, we're going to start now.
Yeah. Kind of the same for Hunter, too. It's like, all right, you guys figured out that the supernatural exists. What are you doing?
Yep.
You're fighting one mage.
Yeah.
Sorry, I really need to get off this joke. It's just... Oh, God. The power scaling for World of Darkness is forever funny to me, because it's just like, oh yeah, there's all these vampires and all these werewolves, and the amount of game that could just be fucked up by one mage or one mummy.
It'll be Mummy, but at least from what I've seen, if the preview we got of Werewolf and of Hunter are as accurate as that game books played out to be, I'm hoping that mages are going to be scaled a little bit better.
Hopefully.
Because, what's interesting is, I talked about it in the Werewolf episode, I'll mention it again, almost all of when you're playing a different game line and you're running them in your game, mages just get disciplines and you reflavor them. Mages just get werewolf's gifts and you reflavor them. So, hopefully, they won't get too out of hand, but we'll see. But if you want to go by old rules and just have the mages go crazy, why the fuck not?
Yeah.
I do like that we ran Hunter for the last one, but maybe I'll pick a different setup for this. But we'll talk about that in the episode. Yeah. Another thing is you can replace the Frost Shepherds with whatever the starting instant of the game is, and you don't have to tell them what it is. Just know that something's going to happen, and when that card is drawn, the game begins.
Which, if you want to be a really dramatic bitch of a storyteller, you could have like a little intro text written up for the start of the game to be like an ominous thing to like fuck with your players, or like a little like, hey, we're gonna smash cut to some scene with some guy you guys don't know and they're doing something fucked up.
Yeah.
Be nervous. By the way, game starts in 2 weeks. Bye. Get fucked.
But actually what I said is you could even end things at the drawing of the King of Spades and then pick up back next session and have them discover the encroaching threat in game.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
do it mise en scène.
Yep.
Mise en scène.
It's like, well, we got this map. I'll talk to you guys in a week or
cool.
two.
Thanks for the map, guys. I'll see you in a bit.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it.
Personally, if we're building all of this from the beginning, you can have a bit of a threat planned for them, but I would want to take a little bit of time to like, all right, I have all this information. Time to retool it into a game.
Yeah. I think it might be worth, if you're doing the quiet year as Vampire, ask each of your players to have one of their flaws and maybe one of their touchstones tied into something with the city to just help like integrate them better. Could be an option where it's like, hey, it's not in the rules, but this is a little bonus goal.
Also, if you're the storyteller, you're planning on being the storyteller, you could absolutely use your turns to try to kind of navigate toward a plan. You know what I mean?
You definitely could. Another thing that you could do is at the beginning of the game, when the map is laid down fresh, you each get to pick. You get 1 or 2 minutes to discuss what kind of city we want this to be. What kind of area do we want to start in? If it's space, what kind of planet? If it's fantasy, what kind of geography? Whatever. Yeah. And then 1 to 2 minutes to discuss, and then everyone just draws something on the map to get started with. You could also, if you're playing Vampire and you have your characters made already, you could say, all right, put your touchdowns down. You could, or put your contacts down. You could have them add all of that stuff to the map from the jump, so that not only are they in play and part of the game at the beginning and people know about it, and it kind of already puts a lot on your city. I think it gets you more invested, and those characters will start coming up more naturally, instead of it being like, oh yeah, I have a 5-dot contact I never talked to in session 5. I guess I'm calling my best friend we've never seen before and won't see again for a year.
Yeah.
Also thought I had, so if you're using this world building system in a city that already exists, I think that could be interesting. So let's say you and your table are going to run like Chicago by Night. There's already like several books for it, but Chicago and the Chicagoland area is so big and you can kind of fill in whatever the fuck you want. Yeah. So you could just like lay down a map of Chicago and be like, okay, here's 1 or 2 things that are just like canon.
You're the ST. These are the things that I'm picking that are going to be here no matter what.
Yeah. And then you can kind of fill things out from there, or basically kind of use this game system as a way to kind of build like a citywide relationship map, or kind of use this system to help build out the homesteading for like the homesteading rules.
Yeah.
Which I'm like, that could be kind of sick.
For sure.
Because, actually, if you combine this with, like, the homesteading rules, because the homesteading system allows you to rate areas on a scale, and then that scale lets you, like, give bonuses and minuses to players and actions depending on, like, what they're doing in that area.
Yeah.
So those two kind of dovetail together kind of nicely.
Yeah, I like that. One of the notes I had actually is if the PCs if the players have PCs in the community before the game starts, they should be marked as semi-safe. You don't want another player to just like, my project is to kill your character. So I would allow events to affect them. However, any losses or gains should be balanced out on the sheet before they begin, and just like a little consent talk with the players. Like, oh no, we accidentally killed your contact. We're going to give you that many XP back to do something else with. Or you can choose a new contact that you'll have the time to build up. Or honestly, is it okay if this character that you wanted to introduce through your contact is off this early?
Well, you could do you can have a free project of, your contact was dying is in the hospital.
Yeah.
They're going to recover for 5 weeks. In 5 weeks, your contact will be back. And I don't know, you could gamble on it. Like maybe get an extra dot because they find out that you helped finance their healthcare or something like that.
Yeah.
That'd be kind of cool.
A lot of discussion, but like you could even just be like, have the ST after the end of the game. It's like, here's all the things you guys built and stuff. I took it and I spent it as your coterie dots.
I might also say, so if people are building out the city, and with the example of like somebody's project or choices affecting like another player's contacts or other background dots, maybe somebody could throw out a counter offer of like, okay, during a discussion thing, am a random NPC. I'm going to offer for a major boon. I will cover this problem for you. So now you have the contact with, now the player character will like, yeah, my contact is safe and secure, but I owe now a boon to some NPC. And now that's just a plot hook that we have floating in the plot at the start.
Right.
Yeah. I think this could be cool. There's a lot of
using
different ways you
boons
can play
more
this.
often is neat too.
I feel like
The boon economy.
I feel like chucking the boon economy into the quiet year for a Vampire City setup would be actually pretty sick.
Right.
Use boons more. I say as somebody who doesn't use boons terribly often.
Same.
I don't mean to. It's just unfortunately I've as of the past couple of years been playing a lot of like younger Kindred or Mortals, and I'm like, the fuck am I gonna do with the boon? I just got here. I don't know.
I want to give me that major boon. I need $1,000. They're like, for a major boon?
I mean,
what?
a major boon could establish you in the city like near immediately.
Yeah, right. But as a brand new Kindred who knows nothing,
Yeah.
just be
Or
funny.
it's just like, I did this thing for you. It's like, oh, do you want a boon for it? I'm like, why? You're just supposed to do good things for people. All these olds are like, fucking sucker.
All right.
All right.
Peace.
But yeah, no, that sounds sick as fuck.
So I think it's a pretty fun game. There's a lot of ways to get it to run for Vampire. I think having players who kind of know the system a little bit, and as a way to introduce things, like say you're the ST, you could do something and say, then this is how it'll affect the game in this way later. Like straight up just explain like more obscure rules and stuff to them by introducing it early. So when it comes up in game, they kind of have heard of it. A little bit.
As a
Right.
storyteller, you could be an absolute monster of just like chucking things into the city and watching the players go, what the fuck? Why? Why is this here? Why? What? Why'd you put that down?
Yeah, like start a discussion that just starts with, why are the Tremere moving their chantry?
Right? Oh no. It's like, what?
What?
Yeah, that's another thing you do with note cards. You can write down the projects, you write down NPCs that are introduced, and when you have discussions, you can write down notes about those.
What are you guys' thoughts about using the discussion mechanic as a player to like introduce like just general plot shenanigans?
I think it makes discussion more interesting. I found that a lot of times discussion can feel like the least interesting choice of the three. So I think having it as a pointed way to just like, it's not on the map, but here's a thing that's happening that we all get to deal with now. And because you're saying it in character, it at least is true that someone believes it or is setting it up.
Yeah.
So as an ST, you can run with that. But like, if someone's just like, we're gonna have a discussion. Does anyone remember where the Elder was sleeping in town?
God, if a player just threw that in the middle of me running a quiet year as a storyteller, just be like, I just wanted to run a silly game, but if you want to be on hard mode, sure, man. Like,
Does anyone know why the mages won't let us in Chinatown? I mean, that's a real plot hook.
That is a plot hook. And I'm just like, okay, so you guys want me to run Big Trouble in Little China?
Oh, no.
Sick. I've been wanting to do that for years. No one will let me.
I'm just waiting for M5 because I hope that we finally figure out what's going on in Chinatown in Chicago.
You think it'll be an M5?
Maybe.
Is it canonically mages? Because I thought it was canonically question mark.
It's canonically question mark. There's a lot of implications about it's either mages or it's Kwaijin. Or it's a third option.
Yeah, we don't
Just
actually know.
A third option?
The third option might be...
Could be Fae of some sort?
Yeah, some sort of Southeast Asian changeling something.
And we don't really know.
Could be Wraith something.
It's
Whoa.
Yeah.
It's all we know is it's likely not vampires, but
Right.
It's likely not vampires, and it is very Southeast Asian coded.
Right.
Beyond that, I have no fucking idea.
Yeah.
Canonically, I have ideas as a storyteller, and it kind of just depends on, like, well, how much do you guys want to fuck around?
Right.
Who wants to be Kurt Russell tonight? And the answer is everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Because he is the best boy.
It's the truth.
I'm gonna be the kid from the Goonies who's in that too.
Oh, yeah, you're right. I just forget about him.
Yeah. So I think that this is a pretty simple one.
Yeah.
Do you guys have any other final thoughts or ideas on the Quiet Year, running it for Vampire specifically, or World of Darkness in general?
Especially for Vampire, don't be scared to take and use Contempt.
I feel like having it specifically noting that there are 20 Contempt is good, because in Vampire is such a political game, I feel like people are going to be grabbing them almost every turn.
And then just sitting on this little pile of contempt. Just... You might want to get more than 20 tokens. I'm just gonna...
You could also, like, introduce little homebrew mechanics for Contempt. You know what I mean? There were, like, we could spend Contempt. We homebrewed a little thing that you could spend Contempt to just add something random. Selfish or not, you can affect the community in some sort of way by spending Contempt.
I like the idea that you could also say someone starts a project and you don't like it. You take a Contempt and put it on that project, and then for one turn the die doesn't advance.
Oh, I love that.
So you could slow down, like, say the Anarchs are actively trying to stop you from cleaning up a certain part of downtown. You're just like, we're not doing that. And you just put a Contempt and it slows things down, which leaves it on the board longer, which means other things could stop that project. It's more likely. So
I very much like that.
I fucking love the shit out of that, because I'm like, that's so petty.
And if you're playing Vampire, should be petty.
And
Should
it's possible that multiple people could add Contempt to it.
So then it's just stuck there
It just
for
sits
like
there for a while.
4 or 5 extra turns.
Right. The Anarchists are like, no, you're not fucking doing this.
So that could end up being like 10 weeks total if you did that to a 6-week project.
Right.
Because it's 3 to 5 players. And say one player introduces it and 4 are like, no. So that could be turn something from like, this should take like a month and a half to 2.5 months pretty quickly.
Right.
And then I storytelling going, there's conflict around this project.
Yeah,
this is now a plot point in
use
the
it.
game.
Yep.
Later.
Honestly, with
take notes, storytellers.
I was going to say with Vampire specifically as an ST, get like a little pocket recorder or something, and then later go back through and listen and take notes, because it's going to be a lot very quick. And if you're playing the game, I think it works really well if you keep the pace up. And if you're recording and you have like your notes, you can then build the city out, take a week or two. Like, I'm just going to listen and type out my notes. And
yeah, and at least the style of storytelling I like doing, I tend to prefer to build the stories based off of what piques my players' interests, because I don't see the point of me spending days and days and days writing all this lore and backstory and characters for shit that no one's gonna fuck with, and they're gonna be like, but Boblin the Goblin over there, and I'm like, I just pulled that out of my ass.
Right.
So having the Quiet Year as a way to kind of like
test the waters
and see what the players are actually interested in, I can kind of take notes like, okay, this got a big reaction. This got a big reaction. They don't give a fuck about this. Da-da-da-da. And also, yeah, it's kind of a good vibe check as a storyteller to figure out, like, what and where people are interested in things. And you can kind of just go, okay, this is what's actually pulling interest, and I can build off of this.
Also, good ways to take little notes on this specific player was really interested in this thing. The rest of the people weren't really that interested, but this person was, so you can use it as a tiny little plot hook for that person sometime.
I can push the screws on them for that.
Right.
Yeah.
And if you're playing like a more low power game, I think it could be more interesting to not have your PCs up front play this and then be like, all right, and now your neonates coming into the city. Where if you're playing more older or more powerful vampires, having them in advance, it's kind of them stepping into the first part of them role playing those characters, because they have the ability to affect big change on a city. Whereas like smaller characters, like we're like 5 neonate anarchs, like.
Honestly, now that you've said that, I think this might be a good system to help people get into the mindset of being an older character.
Yeah, because you have the ability to affect change.
Not only do you have the ability to affect change, you have already invested in the city, because you've already put the time and effort to work on something. So when the game starts rolling and somebody starts, like, fucking with your downtown, you're like, I spent fucking 8 weeks getting this to grow. Ugh.
3 of them were because of contempt.
Because you fucking assholes
Right.
won't understand that we live in a society.
I love it.
So I'm like, this is... The more we have talked about this, the more I'm super sold on this being like a session 0 thing for especially a new troop.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And like I did some quick maths. And so each turn is hopefully 2 minutes-ish, 1 to 2 minutes. Some will end up going longer, some will end up going really quick. But if you're keeping the pace up, this game will take a little under 2 hours. I would plan for 2 hours for the whole thing. And that's a whole year of story, in-game story, that you're knocking out in a session. If you wanted to play older characters, you could even play this like, all right, reflip the cards, we're going to do another year or 2.
Yeah.
Or I mean, if you wanted to make huge changes, you could start fucking with time scale, being like, we're doing...
a month.
Each thing is a month or a year.
Yeah, or if you want to get
I mean?
real squirrely, you could be like, each suit, each season is actually a decade or a
Right.
century.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to start in the Dark Ages and just keep track of, you got to do some maths to and land in the right year, but... And you could make the scale bigger too, if you really wanted to. If you're playing with that kind of time scale, and say you wanted to like do a chunk of Europe, or do like a hunk of the West Coast, or like all of California, or all of New York, which is dense enough to be like 3 cities comparatively.
New York is just 4 cities in a trench coat.
Yeah.
I know there's 5 boroughs. I can hear you. Shut up.
But yeah, you can tweak this. I would say to start, don't do those the first time you play this. But like, I think it's a really easy game to learn, and I think you will learn it very quickly. But at least play it once, even if you don't use it as a game setup, just to kind of get the feel for it, figure out, and then you can do your hard maths and set it up. But
hell yeah. And did you want to talk about your poll idea, or are we just going to have that as an announcement?
No, we can do that, because we don't do the regular announcements at the end of these anyway. They already know.
Yeah, you know what's up. You're already here.
Yeah, so...
Thank you for your support, by the way.
Yeah, thanks for allowing us to do this. But, so, I know when we did Microscope, we ended up doing a full play of it, and it ended up taking 2 extra episodes to get through. And they were kind of long. So, well, we thought it'd be 1, ended up being 2. But I was considering doing the same for this. Considering that it is about 2 hours if we keep the pace up, and we can be a little chatty. I was going to put up a poll. How dare we?
Chatty.
Never.
I had never heard a
In
thing
this
like
economy?
this.
But, so I was thinking about putting up a poll. It's 3 options. Option 1 is, yes, I would like to hear you guys do a playthrough of this game. The game does have rules for a truncated version. If you want to play it shorter, you take a couple specific cards out of each month, or each season, and you play with a shorter. You can lower the time scale. I would drop it down to like 4 or 5 instead of 6, just so your projects kind of move at a clip equal with... You don't have to do that, but...
We can do D4s instead of D6s.
Yeah, something like that. But do you want us to do this, but keep it short? You get 1 episode of it. We call it quits. Whatever happens within, like, say, an hour and a half, we end it. Try and keep the pace up. Do you want us to just do a full playthrough, build a full city out? It'll likely be split up into 2 episodes.
Yeah.
So that would be the next 2 months of patron episodes would be a full playthrough, but you'd get a full city and a full listen of how to run this for your game. Third option is, no, I don't want that. Please do something else for your bonus episode. So that's going to be the poll I want. Do you want quick playthrough, like quick guide will help? Do you want us to just do a full let's play of it so you can hear it? And we'll, for all of those 2 options, we'll post pictures for the episodes so you can kind of see how things shake out as we're going. I have some big paper. I have like a big roll of paper that we can lay out on the table. And like actually get like a nice map. I'll get some pens out. We'll try not to make too much noise as we're recording, but
it's gonna be loud.
Yeah.
Crinkle crunkle, let's go!
I quite literally might have just pause while we're drawing just to keep it truncated. But since we're not doing it on camera, but yeah, do you want to hear this or not? I'm asking. I think it'd be fun.
Tell us what you think.
We want your money to be worth it.
So yeah, do the thing.
Yeah.
Vote.
Press the buttons. Is it going to be Patreon poll?
Yeah, it'll be a Patreon poll. This is a Patreon episode, so they'll go up the same day. I'm going to try and get this episode up Monday. It might be Tuesday because this is a holiday weekend and all that.
Holiday race time.
Oh, yeah.
It is.
It's a holiday.
It is race weekend, and I gotta do family stuff. So I will get this episode up as quickly as possible. But either way, the poll will be up for a week, and should get a Patreon notification, and I'll ping people in the Discord.
Yeah.
I guess we could start posting on social media more when our polls are up, just so people know too.
Yeah.
Because I know a couple times you'd be like, "Oh, I missed it."
Okay.
So I don't know.
I can do that.
Yeah.
I can add that to my cycle of things.
Let's make it happen.
Woo!
Yeah. So that's all I got for this. Thanks for supporting us again. We appreciate it.
Big ol' hearts.
Big ol' heart. Also, keep eye out for clan poll in a couple of weeks when we start doing the ministry
month. So we usually do that first week or two.
A month of ministry?
Yeah, it's going to be a month of ministry.
It's going to be so much industrial. Ugh, hell yeah.
Surprisingly little overlap between the two. But
unfortunate.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to build that as an NPC.
Snack.
Speaking of industrial, thanks, Paralyze. I know we're not doing a whole announcement, but yeah, our theme song's cool, so thank you for that.
It is.
Yeah.
I enjoy it.
Go listen to them.
All right. Are we leaving?
I think so.
We are.
Oh, all right. Hey, goodbye. Yeah.
I gotta hit the stop.